In the dead of night, restless teen Ellie stumbles through a glowing fog into a village that shouldn't exist, its houses pulsing with eerie light and its people staring with starry, unnatural eyes. Each step deeper into its shifting streets pulls her toward a century-old curse where a cosmic watcher hungers for her soul. Will she escape the village's trap or become its next sacrifice, lost to a fate beyond the stars? Chapter 1. The fog that calls the woods were ancient, their gnarled trees clawing at a sky that hung heavy with dusk, their roots twisting through earth that smelled of damp leaves and old secrets. Ellie, a 17-year-old with a restless spirit and a backpack stuffed with granola bars and a worn journal, hiked through them on a chilly October evening, her boots crunching the brittle carpet of fallen leaves. She'd grown up in a sleepy town nearby, where everyone knew her name and her business, and the woods were her escape from her mum's constant questions and the pressure of college applications looming like a storm. She planned to camp by the river just one night to breathe free under the stars, to feel like her life was hers again. The air was sharp, the sunset bleeding red through the branches, painting the forest in hues of fire and shadow. Ellie didn't know the fog was waiting, alive and glowing, ready to pull her into a place no one could find. Her flashlight bobbed in her hand, its yellow beam slicing through the growing dark, catching the glint of dew on moss and the flicker of a distant owl's eyes. The woods were quieter than usual, the usual chatter of birds and rustle of wind absent, leaving only the sound of her breath puffing in the cold. She checked her phone. 6:47 p.m., the screen showing no bars, the battery at half despite a full charge that morning. She shrugged, used to the wood's dead zones, and kept walking, the path familiar from countless hikes since she was a kid. She knew every bend, every rock, or so she thought. As the sun sank, a fog rolled in, sudden and thick, curling round the trees like smoke, glowing with a strange light silver, almost blue, like moonlight trapped in water. It moved, swirling, not drifting but flowing, as if it had a purpose, beckoning her deeper into the woods. Ellie stopped, her heart thumping in her chest. The fog wasn't right, it was too dense, too bright, and it felt alive, brushing her skin like cold fingers. "Hello," she called, her voice small, swallowed by the mist. No answer came, but the fog thickened, wrapping her legs, tugging, gently, like a current pulling her forward. She pulled her jacket tighter, the zipper cold against her fingers, and swept her flashlight across the trees. The beam bent, twisting left, pointing not down the path she knew but to a narrow trail she'd never seen, overgrown with roots and moss, vanishing into the fog's glow. Her stomach twisted, but curiosity burned stronger than fear. A sharp tug in her chest, like a hook pulling her toward something she couldn't name. She should have turned back, gone home, but the fog whispered, not with words but with a feeling. "Come, see." No. Her boots sank into the soft earth, the new path winding through trees that seemed older, their branches weaving a canopy that blocked the sky. The fog glowed brighter, its light pulsing faintly, like a heartbeat, and Ellie swore she saw stars in it, tiny and sharp, glinting like eyes. The air grew colder, heavier, smelling of wet stone and something sour, like rusted iron. Her flashlight flickered, its beam dimming, then died completely, leaving her in the fog's eerie glow. She shook it, muttering, "Come on," but it stayed dark, and the path remained clear, lit by the mist itself. The trees parted, revealing a clearing, and in its heart stood a village. Grey stone houses with steep, jagged roofs, their windows glowing with a pale, unsteady light, like candles, flickering underwater. Ellie froze, her breath catching in her throat. No village belonged here. Her town was small, its history boring farms, a mill, a few old churches, nothing like this. The houses looked ancient, their stones carved with symbols she didn't recognize, worn smooth by centuries of wind and rain. Cobblestone streets, twisted between them, slick with fog, reflecting its glow like a mirror. A church loomed at the far end, its steeple sharp, piercing the mist like a blade. The air hummed, low and deep, like a song rising from the earth, vibrating in her bones, making her teeth ache, her head throb. It wasn't a sound she heard with her ears. It was inside her, alive, searching, knowing her name. She wanted to run, but her legs moved forward, drawn by the fog, the hum. The village that shouldn't exist. The cobblestones shifted under her boots, not like stone but like something soft, pulsing faintly, as if the ground breathed. The houses watched, their windows glinting, and Ellie felt eyes on her, not human, but endless, like the stars she couldn't see through the fog's canopy. "Is anyone there?" she called, her voice trembling, echoing too loud, too long, bouncing off the stones. Figures appeared in the mist, people, or what looked like people, their faces pale, their eyes glowing faintly, like embers in a dying fire. They wore old clothes, cloaks and dresses from a time long gone, their edges frayed, their colors washed out, like ghosts caught in the fog. They didn't speak, just stared, their gazes heavy, pulling at her mind, her heart, her secrets. Ellie's backpack felt heavier, dragging her shoulders down. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. A woman stepped forward, her hair gray and tangled, her eyes too bright, like they held the fog's light inside them. Her face was old, but her skin was smooth, unnatural, like wax stretched over bone. "You're here," she said, her voice soft, like wind through dead leaves, but it carried a weight, like it knew something Ellie didn't. "The village called you." Ellie's skin prickled, goosebumps rising under her jacket. "What is this place?" she said, her hands clenching into fists. The woman smiled, her teeth sharp, too many, glinting like shards of glass. "It comes once a century," she said. "For those who seek, for those who see." The others nodded, their eyes glowing brighter, and the hum grew louder, shaking the cobblestones, rattling Ellie's teeth. She backed away, her boots slipping on the slick stones, but the fog thickened, curling around her like a living thing, cold and wet, guiding her deeper into the village. She turned to run, to find the path back to the woods, but it was gone, the trees swallowed by mist, the village all there was. The hum was in her now, in her blood, her breath, singing of things she couldn't grasp, worlds beyond the stars, eyes that watched from the dark, a truth too vast to hold. The villagers stepped closer, their faces shifting, no longer human, but something older, their eyes starry voids, their mouths moving without sound, whispering her name, Ellie. Her heart pounded, her hands shaking as she gripped her backpack straps. She stumbled toward the church, its open doors spilling pale light, the hum loud as there, pulsing like a heartbeat. Inside, the air was colder, the walls carved with the same strange symbols as the houses, their lines glowing faintly, like veins of light. At the altar stood a mirror, its glass black, rippling like water under a starless sky. Ellie didn't want to look, knew she shouldn't, but her eyes betrayed her. The mirror showed no reflection, only a void, endless, swirling, filled with eyes, hundreds, thousands, glowing with a light that wasn't light, staring straight into her soul. They saw her, knew her, and the hum sang louder, her name, a chorus. "Ellie, Ellie, Ellie," she screamed, backing away, her boots scraping the stone floor. But the villagers were there, blocking the door, their starry eyes watching, their hands reaching, cold and soft, like fog made solid. "You're here," they whispered, their voices a chorus, "not of this world, not of this time. You're ours." Ellie's flashlight fell from her pocket, its beam dead, and the fog closed in, the village glowing brighter, the hum louder, pulling her into its heart. She didn't know what it wanted, didn't know why it chose her, but the eyes in the mirror saw everything: her fights with her mom, her loneliness, her dreams of escaping her small life. The village was alive, its fog a net, its hum a song, and it had been waiting, not just for her, but for someone to answer its call, to join its endless, cosmic choir. Chapter 2. The Whispering Streets. Ellie stood frozen in the church doorway, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest, the hum from the mirror's starry void still echoing in her bones. The village stretched before her, its grey stone houses, glowing faintly under the fog, their windows flickering like eyes that never blinked. The cobblestone streets twisted through the village, slick with mist, reflecting a light that didn't come from the sky. The villagers watched her, their pale faces half hidden in the fog, their eyes glowing with a soft silver light, like stars trapped in glass. They hadn't followed her into the church, but their presence lingered, heavy, pulling at her mind, whispering her name without moving their lips. Ellie's backpack felt like a stone on her shoulders, her flashlight useless, dead in her hand. The fog curled around her legs, cold and alive, urging her to move, to explore, to stay. She stepped onto the cobblestones, and they shifted under her boots, not like stone but like something soft, breathing, pulsing faintly with the hum that never stopped. The air was thick, smelling of wet earth and something sharper, like rusted nails left in the rain. The village was wrong, too old, too quiet, too alive. Ellie knew these woods, had hiked them since she was 10, but no map, no story, no whisper from her town mentioned a village here. It shouldn't exist, yet here it was, its houses leaning closer, their symbols curved lines and jagged stars glowing faintly, like veins under skin. The hum grew louder, vibrating in her teeth, her chest, singing a song that wasn't music but something older, from a place where time didn't work right. "Where am I?" Ellie whispered, her voice trembling, echoing off the stones. The fog answered, not with words, but with the feeling. "Stay. See? No." She walked, her boots slipping on the slick cobblestones, the streets winding in ways that didn't make sense, looping, turning back on themselves, leading her deeper into the village. The houses watched, their windows glinting, and she felt eyes on her, not just the villagers, but something bigger, hidden in the fog, the stones, the air. The hum changed, forming whispers, soft at first, like leaves brushing together, then clearer, sharper. Ellie. Her name came from the streets, the cobblestones themselves, each syllable a vibration under her feet. She stopped, her breath hitching. "Who's there?" she called, her voice small, swallowed by the fog. The whispers grew, not one voice but many, layered, some high and sharp, others deep and slow, like a chorus from a dream. "You fought with her," they said. "You yelled. You left." Ellie's stomach twisted. She'd had a fight with her mum last week, slamming the door after shouting about college, about her future, about being trapped in a small town. She'd never told anyone, not even her journal, but the streets knew, their whispers digging into her mind, pulling up secrets she'd buried deep. "You're selfish, Ellie. You're cruel." Her hands shook, gripping her backpack straps. She looked down, and the cobblestones moved, their surfaces rippling like water, forming words in the cracks: guilt, anger, shame. The letters glowed, faint and silver, like the fog's light, spelling out her fight, her words, her regrets. Ellie stumbled back, her boots catching on a stone that hadn't been there before. "Stop it," she shouted, but the whispers laughed, soft and cold, echoing in her head. The villagers appeared again, stepping from the fog, their starry eyes watching, their faces pale, not quite human. A man in a tattered cloak, his hair long and grey, spoke, his voice like wind over a grave. "The village hears you," he said. "It knows. What do you want?" Ellie asked, her voice breaking. The man tilted his head, his eyes glowing brighter, like twin moons. "You came," he said. "You answered. Now you stay." The others nodded, their mouths moving without sound, their words forming in the streets, the fog, the hum. "You're ours," the cobblestones whispered, the words shifting, spelling out her name again. Then her mum's, then secrets she'd never spoken, how she'd lied about skipping school, how she'd ignored her best friend's calls, how she felt trapped, always running from something she couldn't name. Ellie ran, her boots pounding the stones, but the streets twisted, leading her not out but deeper, past houses with doors that creaked open, revealing darkness inside. The fog followed, curling around her, cold and wet, like hands guiding her path. She turned a corner, and the church loomed ahead again, though she'd run the other way. The streets were alive, moving, looping, trapping her in their maze. The whispers grew louder, chanting her sins. "You hurt her. You lied. You ran." Ellie's chest tightened, tears burning her eyes. How did they know? What was this place? The hum was in her blood now, her breath, singing of things she couldn't understand, worlds beyond, eyes that watched from the void, a truth too big to hold. She stopped at a house, its door open, its windows glowing with that underwater light. Inside, she saw shadows moving, not human, but formless, their edges blurring like smoke. A woman stood there, her face young but her eyes old, glowing like the others. "Why me?" Ellie asked, her voice trembling. The woman smiled, her teeth sharp, glinting like glass. "The village chooses," she said, "every century it calls." "You heard?" Ellie shook her head, backing away, but the cobblestones shifted, tripping her, the words glowing brighter. "You're here. You're seen." She scrambled to her feet, running again, the streets whispering louder, her secrets spilling out. "You stole her necklace. You wished she'd leave." Ellie's heart sank. She'd taken her mum's necklace once, a small thing, hidden in her drawer, never worn. She'd wished, in her darkest moments, for her mum to stop controlling her, to go away. The guilt was heavy, a stone in her chest, but she'd never said it aloud. The village knew, its streets a mirror, reflecting her soul back at her. The fog thickened, the hum louder, and the villagers were everywhere now, lining the streets, their starry eyes watching, their hands reaching, cold and soft, brushing her arms. Her face, Ellie's skin burned where they touched, leaving marks faint, glowing lines, like the symbols on the houses. She yanked her sleeve up, and there they were, words etched into her skin. Sorry, regret, alone. They glowed, pulsing with the hum, and the pain was sharp, like her guilt made solid. Leave me alone, she screamed, but the whispers laughed, the streets answering. You can't leave, you belong. The villagers spoke in unison. Their voices a chorus, not of this world. The cycle turns, they said. Once a century, we rise. You're the one. She ran toward the edge of the village, where the fog was thickest, hoping to find the woods, the path, anything familiar. But the streets looped, bringing her back to the church, its steeple piercing the fog like a warning. The hum was deafening. Now, shaking the ground, the air, her bones, the cobblestones glowed, spelling out her life, every fight, every lie, every moment. Chapter 3. The Church of Starless. Ellie knelt on the cobblestone street, her hands trembling as she clutched her journal, its pages glowing with words she hadn't written, her secrets, her guilt, her name spelled out in ink that moved like the village's fog. The cobblestones pulsed beneath her, whispering accusations. You hurt her, you lied, you're alone. The villagers stood in a silent circle, their starry eyes glowing brighter, their faces pale and shifting, not quite human, their mouths moving without sound. The fog wrapped her like a shroud, cold and alive, its silver light pulsing with the hum that shook her bones, her teeth, her heart. The village was a trap, its streets a maze, and the church loomed ahead, its steeple sharp against the fog, its open doors spilling a light that wasn't light, pale, flickering, like a star drowning in a black sea. Ellie felt it calling, stronger than the streets, stronger than the fog, pulling her toward its heart. She stood, her legs shaky, her backpack heavy with the weight of her fear. The villagers didn't move, but their eyes followed, their glow, burning into her skin, leaving faint marks that tingled, like the words on her arms. Sorry, regret, alone. She wanted to run, to find the woods, her tent, her normal life, but the streets had twisted, looping her back to the church, its doors, wide, inviting, demanding. The hum was loudest here, a song from beyond the stars, singing her name, Ellie. Her boots scraped the cobblestones as she stumbled forward, the fog guiding her, cold and wet, like hands pushing her toward the church. She didn't want to go, but her body moved, drawn by the hum, the light, the village that knew too much. The church's threshold was cold, the air inside heavier, smelling of old wood and something sharper, like ash and iron, like a fire that burned too long ago. The walls were stone, carved with the same symbols as the houses' curved lines. Jagged stars, glowing faintly, like veins pumping light instead of blood. Pews lined the room. They were warped, their surfaces etched with names, dates, words she couldn't read, stretching back centuries. The altar stood at the far end, simple and grey, and above it hung a mirror, its glass black, rippling like water under a starless sky. Ellie's heart pounded, her breath shallow, as she stepped inside, the doors creaking shut behind her, sealing her in with the hum, the light, the eyes she couldn't see but felt watching. The mirror was wrong, too big for the small church, its frame carved with symbols that moved, twisting like the cobblestones, glowing like the fog. She didn't want to look, knew she shouldn't, but her eyes betrayed her, drawn to the glass like a moth to a flame. The mirror showed no reflection, only a void endless, swirling, filled with eyes. Hundreds, thousands, glowing with a light that wasn't light, cold and sharp, like stars that didn't burn but cut. They stared, unblinking, seeing her, knowing her, peeling back her thoughts, her fears, her secrets. The hum grew louder, shaking the pews, the walls, her skull, forming words. Ellie, you're here, you're seen, she screamed, backing away, her boots slipping on the stone floor. But the eyes followed, their gaze heavy, pulling at her mind like a tide. The villagers appeared in the pews, though the doors hadn't opened, their starry eyes matching the mirrors, their faces pale, shifting, no longer human but something older, something that didn't belong on earth. A man in a tattered cloak stood, his eyes like twin voids, his voice low, like wind over a frozen lake. He looked, he said, "You saw, now you know." Ellie shook her head, tears burning her eyes. "No, what?" she whispered, her voice breaking. The man smiled, his teeth sharp, glinting like glass. "The truth," he said, "the village, the watcher." The mirror rippled, the void moving, the eyes swirling faster, forming shapes, faces, hands, things that weren't human, their edges blurring like smoke. They showed her things, flashes in her mind, stars collapsing, worlds burning, a presence, vast and endless, watching from beyond, its hunger eternal. Ellie's head throbbed, her vision blurring, the hum singing inside her, weaving her life into its song, her fights with her mum, her loneliness, her dreams of running away. The eyes knew her, saw her, judged her, and the mirror pulsed, its glass stretching, like it wanted to pull her in. "No," she shouted, turning away, but the eyes were in the walls now, the symbols glowing brighter, their light burning her skin, leaving marks that stung, like the words on her arms. She ran for the doors, but they were locked, the handles cold, burning her palms like frostbite. The hum was deafening, shaking the church, the pews rattling, the mirror glowing, its void spilling out, filling the air with a darkness that wasn't dark but alive, heavy, like a weight from beyond the stars. The villagers spoke, their voices, a chorus, "Not of this world. You can't leave. You're chosen." Ellie's hands shook as she pounded on the doors, her nails splitting, her screams swallowed by the hum. The mirror's eyes moved closer, their gaze piercing, pulling at her soul, showing her more her mum's tears, her best friend's hurt, her own guilt, all woven into a cosmic tapestry, as if she'd been part of their plan all along. Her backpack slipped, her journal spilling open, its pages glowing brighter, the words moving, spelling out her sins. "You yelled, you lied, you ran." She grabbed it, tearing at the pages, but they wouldn't tear, the ink crawling onto her hands, her arms, joining the mark "Sorry, regret," the long glowing like the symbols, pulsing with the hum. The villagers stepped closer, their starry eyes, endless, their hands reaching, cold and soft, like fog made solid. "You're ours," they whispered, their voices echoing in the mirror. The void, her mind, Ellie's skin burned, the marks spreading, forming new words seen, known, claimed. The pain was sharp, like her soul was being carved open, laid bare for the eyes to judge. She stumbled to the altar, desperate, her hands searching for something, anything, to fight back. Her fingers found a candle, its wax cold, its wick unlit, but when she held it, it flared, its flame blue and wrong, flickering like the fog's light. The villagers hissed, their eyes dimming, the hum faltering, and the mirror's void flickered, the eyes retreating. Ellie held the candle high, its light shaking in her hand, and the doors creaked, just enough to show a sliver of fog outside. She ran, clutching the candle, its flame burning her fingers, but she didn't care. The villagers reached, their hands grazing her, leaving more marks, more words "Stay," "Join," "No." She pushed through the doors, falling onto the cobblestones, the candle's flame dying, the fog closing in, the hum louder, pulling her back. Ellie scrambled to her feet, the village glowing around her, the streets whispering again, her name, her secrets, her guilt. The marks on her skin glowed, a map of her soul, and the hum was in her blood, her breath, singing of the void, the eyes, the watcher that saw everything. She didn't know what it wanted, didn't know why it chose her, but the church's mirror had seen her, known her, and the village wasn't done. The fog curled tighter, the villagers watching, their starry eyes endless, waiting for her to return, to look again, to join their cosmic song. She'd felt small. The villagers followed, their eyes brighter, their faces shifting, no longer human, but something older, their mouths moving with the whispers, their hands reaching, pulling her back. Ellie fell to her knees, her backpack slipping, her journal spilling open. The pages glowed, words appearing that she hadn't written, her fight with her mum, her loneliness, her dreams of running away. The ink moved, like the cobblestones, forming new sentences. "You're ours, you're seen," she screamed, clawing at the stones, but they were cold, alive, holding her in place. The fog closed in, the hum a song now, singing of stars, of voids, of a presence that watched from beyond, waiting for her. The villagers stood over her, their starry eyes endless, their voices a chant. Stay, no, see. Ellie's hands shook as she grabbed her journal, tearing at the pages, but the words stayed, glowing brighter, crawling onto her skin. The marks burned, spreading up her arms, her chest, a map of her guilt, her shame. She felt the village inside her, its hum in her blood, its eyes in her mind. She didn't know what it wanted, didn't know why it chose her, but the streets knew everything: her past, her fears, her secrets. The village was alive, its fog a trap, its cobblestones a mirror, and it had been waiting, not just for her, but for someone to answer its call, to join its endless, whispering song. Chapter 4. The innkeeper's Ellie stumbled away from the church, her boots slipping on the slick cobblestones, the candle's dying flame still burning in her mind, its blue light a fleeting shield against the starry eyes that watched from the void. The village loomed around her, its grey stone houses glowing faintly under the fog, their windows flickering like candles drowned in water. The hum was relentless, vibrating in her bones, her teeth, her heart, whispering her name, her secrets. Ellie, you're seen, you're ours. The marks on her skin glowed brighter, words etched in light. Sorry, regret, alone, spreading up her arms, her chest, a map of her guilt that stung like a fresh wound. The villagers lingered in the fog, their starry eyes glinting, their faces pale and shifting, not quite human, their hands reaching but not touching, as if waiting for her to surrender. The church's mirror had seen her, known her, and the village wasn't done. It wanted more. Her breath came in sharp gasps, the fog curling around her like a living thing, cold and wet, pushing her deeper into the village's maze. The cobblestones whispered, their words sharper now. You hurt her, you lied, you ran, digging into her mind, pulling up memories of her mum's tears, her best friend's hurt, her own restless heart. Ellie clutched her journal, its pages glowing with words she hadn't written, her secrets spilling out in ink that moved like the fog. She needed answers, needed to understand why the village chose her, what it wanted. The streets twisted, leading her not to the woods but to a building larger than the others, its sign creaking in the fog, Inn of the Lost. Its windows glowed with that same underwater light, and its door was open, inviting, demanding, like the churches had been. Ellie hesitated, her heart pounding, the hum louder here, shaking the ground, the air, her soul. The fog pushed her forward, its cold fingers brushing her back, and she stepped inside, the door creaking shut behind her, sealing her in with the hum, the light, the eyes she felt but couldn't see. The inn was dim, its air thick with the smell of old wood, dust, and something sour, like rusted metal left in the rain. The walls were lined with shelves, their contents hidden in shadow, and a fireplace glowed faintly, its flames blue and wrong, flickering like the fog's light. A woman stood behind a counter, old and hunched, her hair white and tangled, her face wrinkled but her eyes glowing, like the villagers, like stars trapped in glass. Her hands were scarred, the marks glowing faintly, like the symbols on the houses. The words on Ellie's skin. You're here, the woman said, her voice low, like wind through a graveyard, but heavy, like it carried secrets older than the village. I'm Clara, the innkeeper. The village called you. Ellie's throat tightened, her hands clenching her journal. Why me? She asked, her voice trembling. What is this place? Clara smiled, her teeth sharp, too many, glinting like shards of ice. Sit, she said, pointing to a chair by the fire, its wood carved with symbols that pulsed, matching the hum. Ellie didn't want to, but her legs moved, drawn by the fog, the hum, the eyes that watched from the shadows. She sat, the chair cold, its carvings pressing into her back, leaving faint marks that burned. Clara leaned forward, her glowing scars brighter, forming words Ellie couldn't read, like the ones on her own skin. The village comes once a century, she said, her voice slow, deliberate, like she was reciting a story told 1,000 times. It rises from the fog, from the stars, for one soul. It chooses those who seek, those who wander, those who carry guilt. Ellie's heart sank. She'd always run from her mum, her town, her life, always chasing something bigger, something she couldn't name. The hum grew louder, the fire flickering, its flames forming shapes, eyes, hands, things that weren't human, watching her, knowing her. Why does it come? Ellie whispered, her hands shaking. Clara's eyes glowed brighter, like twin moons, in a starless sky. For the Watcher, she said, from beyond the stars, it sees all, knows all, hungers for one soul every 100 years. The village is its gate, its trap, its offering. Ellie's stomach twisted, the marks on her skin, burning, the words sorry, regret, alone pulsing with the hum. I didn't ask for this, she said, tears burning her eyes. Clara's smile faded, her face softening, but her eyes stayed cold, endless. None do, she said. But you came, you heard the fog, you looked in the mirror. Ellie's mind raced, memories of the church's mirror flooding back the void, the eyes, the hum that sang her name. What happens to the soul? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Clara leaned closer, her scars glowing brighter, forming new words, chosen, bound, eternal. They join the Watcher, she said. They see what it sees, know what it knows, forever. Ellie's breath caught, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. Forever, she said, her voice breaking. Clara nodded, her eyes glinting. The village keeps them, their souls part of its song, until it rises again. Ellie stood, her chair scraping the floor, the hum shaking the inn, the shelves, the fire. I'm not staying, she said, but the words felt weak, swallowed by the fog's weight. Clara's scars glowed, her hands reaching, not touching but close, their light burning Ellie's skin, adding new markscene, known, claimed. You can't leave, Clara said, her voice soft but final. The village chose you, the Watcher sees you. The fire flared, its blue flames forming eyes, mouths, shapes that whispered her name. Her secrets, you hurt her, you lied, you ran. Ellie backed away, her journal slipping, its glowing pages spilling open, the words moving, spelling out her fight with her mum, her loneliness, her guilt. She grabbed it, clutching it to her chest, but the ink crawled onto her hands, joining the marks, burning like fire. The inn's walls pulsed, the symbols glowing, the hum louder, singing of stars, voids, a presence that watched from beyond. How do I stop it? Ellie asked, tears streaming down her face. Clara's eyes softened, but her voice was cold. You don't, she said. The village has always been, it will always be. Ellie ran for the door, but it was locked, the handle cold, burning her palm like the church's had. The hum was deafening, shaking the inn, the shelves rattling, bottles and books falling, their pages glowing, their words her own guilt, shame, fear. The villagers appeared, though the door hadn't opened, their starry eyes watching, their hands reaching, cold and soft, like fog made solid. You're ours, they whispered, their voices a chorus, not of this world. Ellie's skin burned, the marks spreading, forming sentences. You're chosen, you're seen, you're bound, she screamed, pounding on the door, but the fog pushed back, filling the inn, its light glowing, its whispers joining the hum. Clara stood, her scars a map of glowing words, her eyes endless, like the void in the church's mirror. I was like you, she said, her voice heavy, like it carried centuries. I came, long ago, I stayed, you will too. Ellie's heart stopped, her breath ragged. The innkeeper's scars were like hers, but older, deeper, a story of surrender. Ellie's hands shook as she reached into her backpack, finding a lighter, a gift from her dad, its metal warm against her skin. She flicked it, the flame small but steady, not blue but orange, real, hers. The villagers hissed, their eyes dimming, the hum faltering, and the door creaked, just enough to show the fog outside. Ellie ran, clutching the lighter, its flame shaking but alive, the villagers reaching, their hands grazing her, leaving more marks, more words. Stay, join, no. She burst into the street, the fog closing in, the hum louder, the cobblestones whispering her name, her secrets. The marks on her skin glowed, a map of her soul, and the hum was in her blood, her breath, singing of the Watcher, its hunger, its endless gaze. She didn't know how to escape, didn't know if she could, but Clara's tale had shown her the village's truther trap, a gate, a sacrifice for something beyond the stars. The village wasn't done, and neither was the Watcher, waiting for her to join its cosmic song. Chapter 5. The Well of Forgotten Names. Lee's boots sank into the damp cobblestones, each step echoing in the silent village square. The glowing fog, ever present since she'd stumbled into this cursed place, swirled around her ankles, tugging like a living thing. It was cold, colder than it should have been for a summer night. and the air carried a wet, heavy weight that clung to her skin, making her shiver. Her flashlight, clutched tight in her sweating palm, flickered weakly, its beam barely cutting. Through the mist, the village hummed a low, bone-deep vibration that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, like the earth itself was breathing. She'd felt it since she first saw the village, its houses pulsing with eerie light, its people staring with starry, unnatural eyes. But here, in this shadowed square, the hum was louder, sharper, and it led her to the well. The well stood alone, its stones dark and slick, worn smooth by hands or time or something worse. It was old, older than the village, maybe older than the forest itself. The fog curled thicker around it, glowing faintly green, and the hum pulsed in rhythm with Ellie's heartbeat. She stopped a few feet away, her breath catching. The well wasn't just a thing, it felt alive, watching her. Her flashlight flickered again, the beam wobbling as if scared to touch the stones. She tightened her grip, her knuckles white, and took a step closer. Voices rose from the well's depths, soft at first, like whispers on the wind, but growing clearer, sharper, each one a needle in her mind. Margaret, lost to the stars. Thomas, taken by the light. The names came faster, overlapping, a chorus of pain and fear. Ellie froze, her heart pounding. The voices weren't just sounds, they carried weight, memories, lives. She didn't know these people, but their names sank into her, heavy with grief and something darker, something that tasted like regret. Her own name wasn't spoken, but the well seemed to know her, its hum wrapping around her thoughts like a cold hand. She leaned over the edge, her flashlight shaking. The well's mouth was a black void, deeper than it should have been, like it swallowed light itself. The voices grew louder, more desperate. Elizabeth, drowned in the fog. Samuel, bound to the dark. Each name came with a flash of feeling fear, betrayal, loss. Ellie's chest tightened, her breath short. She saw scratches on the well's rim, faint and worn, like someone had clawed at the stone. Names, maybe, carved by trembling hands, now faded into nothing. Her fingers brushed the marks, and the stone burned cold, making her gasp. A gust of wind pushed her back, sudden and sharp, and the fog thickened, its glow dimming to a sickly green. Shapes formed in the mist, not quite human, their edges blurred, their faces blank but watching. Ellie stumbled, her flashlight dropping to the stones with a clatter. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice small, shaking. The well answered, with a low moan, and the water below rippled, showing a face not hers, but a girl's, young, with hollow eyes, and a mouth open in a silent scream. The girl's hands reached up, clawing at the air, and Ellie fell back, her heart slamming against her ribs. The village wasn't just alive, it was hungry. The well was its throat, swallowing souls for something vast, something not of this world. The hum grew louder, vibrating through her bones, and the voices named her secrets. Ellie lied to her mother. Ellie blamed herself for the crash, her fights with her mom, the guilt over her dad's accident. The nights she cried alone, they spilled out, pulled from her like threads. She scrambled to her feet, grabbing her flashlight, its weak light, her only anchor. "Stop it," she yelled, but the voices didn't stop. They wove her fears into their chorus, promising to keep her, to make her one of the forgotten dot. Ellie ran, the cobblestones slick under her boots. The fog chased her, its glow pulsing in time with the well's hum. The voices followed, their whispers, clawing at her mind, naming people she'd never met, but felt she should know. Mary, offered to the stars. John, lost to the pact. Each name was a weight, dragging her back toward the well. She tripped, falling hard, her knees scraping. The stones, the fog closed in, its shapes sharper, now hands, eyes, mouths, all glowing with that sickly light. They reached for her, cold and heavy, and Ellie felt her strength fading, like the village was drinking it. Her dad's jacket, old and worn, hung heavy on her shoulders. She clutched it, the leather grounding her, reminding her of home. Her mum's voice, sharp with worry, echoed in her mind. "Don't go too far, Ellie." But she had, and now she was here, trapped in a place that knew her too well. The well's hum grew louder, calling her back, promising answers if she'd only look. Again she could almost see it, the girl in the water, her hollow eyes, her reaching hands. The fog whispered, "Stay," and Ellie's legs shook, her body wanting to obey, but she wouldn't, not yet. She forced herself up, her flashlight flickering but still alive. The fog pressed closer, its shapes circling like wolves, but Ellie swung the light, its beam cutting through them. They hissed, their forms breaking apart, but they didn't vanish. The well's voices grew softer, fainter, as she stumbled away, but they didn't stop. They lingered, naming her fears, her guilt, her pain. The square darkened, the hum fading to a low throb, but Ellie knew it wasn't done with her. The village wanted her soul, and the well was its heart, beating for something cosmic, something hungry. She ran, the cobblestones twisting under her feet, the fog swirling thicker. Her flashlight flickered, its beam barely holding back the dark. The village's hum followed, a reminder that she couldn't escape, not really. Every step felt like wading through mud, the air heavy with the weight of the well's voices. She saw the church in the distance, its steeple sharp against the moonless sky, and the clock tower beyond, its backward ticks echoing faintly. The village was alive, its paths shifting, its houses leaning in like they could see her. Ellie's breath burned in her chest, but she kept moving. The well's whispers clawing at her mind. The fog glowed brighter, its shapes forming again taller now, their eyes starry and unblinking. They didn't speak, but their presence was a weight, pressing her toward the well. Ellie's flashlight flickered one last time, then died, leaving her in the glow of the fog. She clutched her dad's jacket, her fingers digging into the leather, and whispered his name like a prayer. "Dad, help me." The fog paused, its shapes wavering, and for a moment the hum softened, but it wasn't enough. The well's voices rose again, naming her, calling her, promising to keep her forever. Ellie's legs burned, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break. She stumbled into an alley, the walls closing in, their stones slick with moss, or something worse. The fog followed, its glow dimming to a sickly green, and the voices grew sharper, cutting deeper. "Ellie, you can't run, Ellie, you belong here." She pressed her hands to her ears, but the voices were inside her, pulling at her thoughts. She saw her mom's face, tired and worried, and her dad's smile, gone forever. The well knew them, too, and it used them, twisting their faces into the fog's shapes. She tripped again, her hands scraping the stones, and the fog swarmed, its shapes circling tighter. They weren't just shadows, they were pieces of the village, pieces of the thing that watched from beyond. Ellie felt it now, a presence vast and cold, its eyes countless, its hunger endless. The well was its mouth, and the village was its body, built to trap souls for it. Her flashlight lay useless, its batteries dead, but she grabbed it anyway, swinging it like a club. The shapes hissed, retreating, but they didn't leave. They waited, patient, knowing she was tiring. Ellie's breath came in gasps, her body shaking. The alley opened into another square, smaller, with a broken fountain at its center. The fog was thinner here, but the hum was still there, vibrating through the stones. She leaned against the fountain, her hands trembling, and saw more like the ones on the well. Anna, James, Sarah. The village had taken them all, and now it wanted her. She felt it in her bones, in her blood, in the way the fog seemed to know her every thought. She closed her eyes, trying to shut it out, but the voices followed. "Ellie, you're one of us. Ellie, give in." She saw her dad's crash again, the car twisted, the lights flashing, her own screams echoing. The well had pulled that memory from her, using it to weaken her. She opened her eyes, tears burning, and saw the fog forming her dad's face, his eyes glowing, his mouth moving. "Stay, Ellie," it said. But it wasn't him. It was the village, the well, the thing beyond the stars. "No," she screamed, her voice raw. She threw the flashlight, and it hit the fountain, cracking the stone. The fog flinched, its shapes scattering, and the hum stuttered. Ellie stood, her legs shaking but her resolve hard. She wouldn't let the village take her. She wouldn't let the well name her. She ran again, the fog chasing, its glow pulsing like a heartbeat. The village shifted, its paths twisting, but Ellie kept moving, her dad's jacket heavy on her shoulders, her mum's voice in her mind. The well's hum grew fainter, but it didn't stop. It never would. Ellie knew that now. The village was alive, and the well was its heart, beating for something cosmic, something that wanted her soul. She saw the forest's edge in the distance, trees barely visible through the fog, but the path vanished before she could reach it. The village wasn't done with her. It would never be done. But Ellie kept running, her breath burning, her heart stubborn. She'd fight, even if it meant carrying the well's voices forever. The fog glowed brighter, its shapes closing in, and the hum roared, shaking the ground. Ellie's hand brushed her dad's jacket, and she felt something hard in the paquita. Knife, small but sharp. She pulled it out, its blade glinting in the fog's light. She didn't know if it could help, but it was something, a piece of the real world in this place of nightmares. She gripped it tight, her knuckles white, and kept running, the well's voices fading but never gone, promising to call her back. Chapter 6. The Clock That Counts Backward. Lee's boots pounded the cobblestones, her breath ragged as she fled the well's haunting voices. The village's glowing fog clung to her, its sickly green light pulsing in time with her racing heart. The air was thick, heavy with a damp chill that seeped into her bones, and the hum of the villager relentless vibrated through the ground, urging her forward. She didn't know where she was running, only that she had to get away from the well, its whispers still clawing at her mind, naming her secrets, her guilt. Her flashlight was dead, its beam snuffed out by the village's will, and her dad's old jacket felt heavier, like it carried the weight of the fog itself. The clock tower loomed ahead, its black silhouette sharp against the moonless sky. Its face glowed faintly, a sickly yellow that flickered like a dying star. The hands moved wrong backward, each tick a jolt in Ellie's chest, as if the tower was counting down to something terrible. The hum was louder here, a deep throb that shook the stones under her feet. She slowed, her legs burning, and stared up at the tower. It wasn't just a building, it was alive, part of the village's curse, its ticking a heartbeat for something vast and unseen. Her stomach twisted, but the fog pushed her closer, its glow curling around her like a leash dot. She reached the tower's door, heavy wood carved with symbol swirls and eyes that seemed to blink when she wasn't looking. Her hand shook as she pushed it open, the creak swallowed by the fog. Inside, the air was thick, smelling of dust and something sharp, like burnt metal. The darkness pressed against her, and her dead flashlight was useless, but a faint glow from above lit the spiral staircase winding up into the tower. The ticks were louder now, each one a hammer in her skull, pulling memories she didn't want: her dad's laugh, her mom's tears, the crash that took him. Ellie gripped the knife in her pocket, its blade a small comfort, and started climbing. The stairs were uneven, carved from black stone that glistened like it was wet. Symbols covered the walls, etched deep, their lines glowing faintly when her fingers brushed them. They burned, cold and hot at once, and Ellie yanked her hand back, her heart pounding. The ticks grew louder with every step, vibrating through her bones, and her head throbbed with flashes of her life, screaming at her mom, hiding her tears, blaming herself for the accident. The tower knew her, just like the well, and it was digging deeper, pulling out her pain dot at the top. The clock's gears loomed, massive and rusted, grinding in reverse with a groan that made her teeth ache. The clock face was huge, its numbers blurred, glowing brighter now, almost blinding. Ellie shielded her eyes, but the light shifted, forming images her as a child, laughing with her dad in their old backyard. Her older, sitting alone in her room, her face blank with guilt. The ticks slowed, each one a punch, and the images changed. She saw the village, 100 years ago, houses rising from fog, people screaming as shadows dragged them away. Their eyes glowed, starry and wrong, just like the villagers she'd seen. Ellie's breath caught. The clock showed her in the village, her own eyes glowing, her hands marked with scars like the innkeeper's. She was walking its streets, part of its curse, her soul tied to something beyond the stars. "No," she whispered, her voice shaking. The gears screeched, and the images shifted again, her future, or something pretending to be it. She saw herself standing in the fog, her skin glowing, her hand offered to a shape that wasn't human, its eyes countless, its presence crushing. The clock was telling her she belonged here, that her life had always led to this place. She stumbled back, her boots slipping on the slick floor. The ticks were deafening now, each one pulling at her thoughts, her fears. She saw her dad's crash. Again, the car twisted, her screams echoing. The clock used it, weaving her pain into the village's curse. Ellie's hands shook as she touched the clock's frame, its metal burning her skin, cold and hot at once. The ticking stopped, and the silence was worse, heavy with the weight of something watching. She felt it, a presence, vast and cold, its eyes everywhere, knowing her every thought. Ellie's knife was in her hand before she realized it, the blade glinting in the clock's glow. She wanted to smash it, to stop the ticks, but the gears groaned louder, and the images flared her. Mom, alone, crying. Her dad, gone forever. Herself, trapped in the village, her soul eaten by the thing in the fog. "Stop," she yelled, her voice raw, but the clock didn't listen. The hum returned, stronger, shaking the tower, and the fog seeped in, curling around her ankles. It whispered, "Stay," promising answers, peace, if she'd give in. She ran, the stairs twisting under her feet, the symbols on the walls glowing brighter, watching her. The ticks followed, each one a hook in her mind, pulling her back. She saw the door below, but it seemed farther now, the tower stretching, the village bending to keep her. Her dad's jacket caught on a step, and she yanked it free, the leather tearing slightly. The sound grounded her, a piece of the real world in this nightmare. She thought of her mum, waiting at home, and pushed harder, her legs shaking but stubborn. The door was closer now, but the fog was thicker, its shapes forming hands, eyes, mouths, all glowing with that sickly light. They reached for her, cold and heavy, and the ticks grew louder, matching her heartbeat. Ellie swung her knife, not at the shapes but at the air, a desperate act to keep them back. They hissed, retreating, but the hum didn't stop. The clock was counting her, tying her to the village with every backward tick, and the presence in the fog was waiting, patient, hungry. She burst through the door, the cobblestones cold under her boots. The fog swarmed, its glow pulsing, and the ticks echoed in her chest, even outside. The village shifted, its paths twisting, the houses leaning, in like they could see her. Ellie's knife was still in her hand, her knuckles white, and she ran, the fog chasing, its shapes circling. She saw the church in the distance, its steeple sharp, and the well beyond, its hum blending with the clocks. The village was one thing, one creature, and it wanted her soul. Her breath burned, her legs heavy, but she kept moving, the knife her only anchor. The fog whispered her dad's name, her mom's, her own, promising to keep them all if she stayed. Ellie's heart ached, but she thought of her dad's smile, her mom's voice, and gripped the knife tighter. The ticks faded, but they didn't stop, and the fog's shapes followed, their eyes starry, their mouths open. She was running, but the village was endless, its curse woven into her, and the clock's backward ticks promised it wasn't done. The forest's edge flickered in the distance, trees barely visible through the fog, but the path vanished before she could reach it. The hum grew louder, the ticks sharper, and Ellie felt the presence, again vast cold, watching. Her hand brushed her dad's jacket, the torn leather a reminder of home, and she kept running, her heart stubborn despite the fear. The clock had shown her its truth, but she wouldn't let it own her. Not yet. Chapter 7. The shadows that Dansley's boots slipped on the slick cobblestones as she stumbled away from the clock tower, its backward ticks still echoing in her skull. The village's glowing fog swirled thicker, its sickly green light pulsing like a heartbeat, wrapping her in a cold, damp grip. Her breath came in sharp gasps, each one burning her lungs, and her dad's old jacket hung heavy, the torn leather brushing her thighs. The knife in her hand glinted faintly, her only defense against the village that seemed to breathe, to watch, to want. The hum was everywhere, relentless, vibrating through the stones, her bones, her thoughts. It carried the well's whispers, the clock's ticks, and something deeper, something hungry that knew her name. The streets twisted, their paths bending in ways that defied reason, leading her deeper into the village's heart. The fog moved with her, curling round her ankles like fingers, guiding her to a narrow alley where the houses leaned close, their windows dark but alive, like eyes. Her flashlight was dead, useless in her pocket, but the fog's glow was enough to see the shadows. They slid across the walls, long and thin, moving when they shouldn't. Ellie froze, her heart slamming against her ribs. The shadows weren't hers, they stretched too far, their edges sharp with teeth, their forms twisting into shapes that mimicked her but weren't. She took a step, and the shadows moved too faster, dancing to a rhythm she couldn't hear. Her silhouette appeared on the wall, but it was wrong, her arms too long, her face twisted with a fear she hadn't shown. One shadow raised a hand, mimicking her dad's wave before the crash, and Ellie's throat tightened, tears stinging. Her eyes, "Stop it," she yelled, her voice echoing off the damp stones. But the shadows didn't stop. They laughed, a sound like breaking glass, and slithered closer, peeling off the walls to pool at her feet like ink. Ellie ran, the alley narrowing, the fog thickening until it was hard to breathe. The shadows followed, their dance faster now, circling her like wolves. They formed her mom's face, her eyes glowing with the village's starry light, her mouth moving in a silent plea. "Stay, Ellie," the shadows whispered, their voices, a chorus of her regrets leaving her mom alone, blaming herself for the crash, hiding her pain behind lies. Each word cut deeper, sinking into her chest, and Ellie felt her strength fading, like the shadows were drinking it. The alley opened into a small courtyard, the fog parting to reveal a cracked stone bench and a single, twisted tree, its branches clawing at the sky. The shadows swarmed, pooling around the tree, their forms sharper now, hands, eyes, mouths, all glowing with that sickly light. They mimicked her fears, showing her dad's crash. The car twisted, her screams echoing. Ellie tripped, her knees hitting the stones, and her knife clattered away, its blade glinting in the fog. The shadows surged, cold and heavy, pressing her down until she could barely move. She saw her own face in them, crying, screaming, begging. The village was feeding on her, using her fears to trap her. Her hand brushed her dad's jacket, the torn leather grounding her, and she thought of her mum's voice, sharp with worry. "Don't go too far, Ellie," the shadows hissed, their forms tightening, and Ellie felt the presence behind them, vast, cold, its eyes countless, watching from the fog. It wasn't just the village, it was something bigger, something that lived in the shadows, hungry for her soul. Ellie lunged for her knife, her fingers closing around the handle. She swung it, not at the shadows but at the air, a desperate act to keep them back. They hissed, retreating, their forms breaking apart, but they didn't vanish. The fog glowed brighter, the hum louder, shaking the courtyard. Ellie scrambled to her feet, her legs shaking, and ran, the shadows chasing, their dance relentless. The trees' branches seemed to reach for her, their tips glowing with the same starry light as the villagers' eyes. The courtyard led to another street, the houses closer now, their walls pulsing with the village's hum. The shadows slid across them, forming her dad's face, her mum's, her own, each one twisted with pain. "You can't leave," they whispered, their voices blending with the hum, pulling at her thoughts. Ellie's chest ached, her breath short, but she kept moving, the knife in her hand, her dad's jacket, her shield. The fog thickened, its shapes circling tighter, and the shadows grew bolder, their edges sharp enough to cut. She stumbled into another square, smaller, with a broken fountain at its center, its water black and still. The shadows pooled around it, their forms merging into something larger figure with too many eyes, its mouth a void. Ellie's heart stopped, her knife trembling in her hand. The figure moved, its dance slow, deliberate, mimicking her every step. It showed her the crash again, her dad's face, her mum's tears, and Ellie felt the weight of it all, pressing her down, begging her to give in. "No," she screamed, her voice raw, and swung her knife at the figure. The blade passed through, the shadows scattering like smoke, but they reformed, laughing. The hum roared, shaking the ground, and the fog closed in, its glow burning her skin. Ellie's legs buckled, but she thought of her dad's smile, her mom's voice, and forced herself up. She ran, the shadows chasing, their dance faster now, their voices louder. "Ellie, you belong here. Ellie, give in." The street twisted, leading her back to the fountain, the village looping its paths to keep her trapped. The shadows swarmed, their forms endless, their eyes starry and unblinking. Ellie's knife was heavy, her arm tired, but she swung it again, the blade cutting through the fog. The shadows hissed, retreating, but the hum didn't stop. The village was alive, its shadows part of the thing that watched from beyond, and it wanted her, body and soul. She saw the forest's edge in the distance, trees faint through the fog, but the path vanished before she could reach it. The shadows laughed, their dance circling tighter, and Ellie felt the presence again, cold, its hunger endless. She clutched her dad's jacket, the knife in her hand, and kept running, her heart stubborn despite the fear. The shadows were the village's claws, and they weren't done with her. They'd never be done, but Ellie wouldn't let them win, not yet, not while she still had her dad's memory, her mum's love, and a blade to fight with. Chapter 8. The Book of Starlit. Cinzella's boots skidded on the wet cobblestones as she fled the dancing shadows, their hissing laughter still ringing in her ears. The village's fog clung to her, its sickly green glow pulsing like a living thing, wrapping her in a cold, damp shroud. Her breath burned, sharp and ragged, and her dad's torn jacket hung heavy. The leather, her only tether to the world beyond this cursed place. The knife in her hand trembled, its blade glinting faintly in the fog's light, but it felt small against the village's hum-a-low, relentless throb that shook the ground and her bones, whispering her fears, her guilt, her name. The shadows had chased her from the courtyard, their starry eyes and toothy mouths fading but never gone. And now the fog pushed her toward a new nightmare, a building with crooked spires, its doors ajar like an open mouth. The library. She stumbled to a stop, her heart pounding. The library's stone walls were black, slick with something that wasn't water, and its windows glowed with the same eerie light as the village's eyes. The hum was louder here, vibrating through her chest, pulling her closer despite her fear. Her flashlight was dead, useless in her pocket, but the fog's glow lit the way, curling around the doors like fingers, beckoning her inside. Ellie gripped her knife, her knuckles white, and stepped forward, the air growing heavier, thicker, smelling of old paper and something sour, like rotting fruit. The village wanted her here, and she hated how her feet obeyed, drawn by a force she couldn't name. Inside, the library was vast, its shelves towering into darkness, their books pulsing with faint starry light. The floor was stone, worn smooth, and the fog seeped in, pooling at her feet like spilled ink. The hum thrummed louder, weaving through the shelves, and the air pressed against her, heavy with the weight of something watching. Ellie's eyes darted, searching for a way out, but the shelves seemed to shift, closing in, their symbol swells and eyes glinting. When she looked away, her breath hitched, and she clutched at Dad's jacket, the torn leather grounding her, reminding her of home, of her mum's worried voice. "Don't go too far, Ellie." A table stood at the room's center, a single book lying open on it, its pages blank but glowing, like the fog outside. Ellie approached, her boots echoing, her knife raised, like it could protect her. The book's cover was black, its edges frayed, marked with symbols that burned her eyes within eyes, stars within stars. The hum pulsed in time with her heartbeat, and the moment her fingers brushed the book, words appeared, scrawled in her own handwriting, sharp and accusing. "I lied to Mum about the fight. I wished Dad would leave." Ellie's stomach dropped, her throat tightening. These were her secrets, her shame, pulled from her mind and spilled onto the page. She stepped back, her hand shaking, but the words kept coming, glowing like stars, brighter, sharper. "I broke the car's brakes. I wanted the village to find me." Lies. She hadn't done those things, but the book wrote them anyway, its ink bleeding into the page, accusing her of sins she hadn't committed. Ellie's chest ached, tears burning her eyes. The library creaked, the shelves leaning closer, their books whispering her name. Ellie read. The fog thickened, forming shapes, hands, eyes, mouths that reached for her, their glow matching the books. She slammed it shut, the sound echoing like a scream, but it opened again, the pages flipping, the words sharper now, naming her fears, her guilt, her pain. The book was alive, tied to the village's curse, writing her life as if she'd already surrendered. Ellie saw visions in the pages, herself standing in the fog, her eyes glowing, her hands marked with scars like the innkeeper's. She was offering her soul to something vast, something with countless eyes, its hunger endless. "No," she yelled, her voice raw, but the library answered, its hum roaring, the shelves shaking. The words changed, showing names she didn't know. Margaret, Thomas, Elizabeth, each one tied to a sin, a life lost to the village. The fog's shapes grew bolder, their hands cold, brushing her skin, pulling her toward the book. Ellie's knife flashed, and she tore a page, the paper ripping like flesh. The library screamed, a sound like tearing metal, and the shelves shook, books falling, their pages spilling words that weren't hers, names, sins, lives swallowed by the village. The fog surged, its shapes forming a figure with starry eyes, its mouth a void, mimicking her dad's face, her mum's, her own. "Stay," it whispered, its voice, the books, the villages, the thing beyond the stars. Ellie's legs buckled, the torn page crumbling in her hand, its words still burning. In her mind, "Ellie belongs to us." She ran, the library's scream chasing her, the fog shapes swarming. The shelves seemed to twist, blocking her path, but she ducked under them, her knife slashing at the air. The hum roared, shaking the floor, and the book's glow followed, its words echoing in her skull. I lied, I wished, I broke. Lies, but they felt true, sinking into her like poison. Ellie's breath burned, her heart pounding, but she thought of her mum, waiting at home, and her dad, gone but still with her. She wouldn't let the book write her fate. The doors were ahead, but the fog was thicker, its shapes circling. There, eyes unblinking, Ellie swung her knife, the blade passing through them, and they hissed, retreating but not gone. The library's hum was deafening, blending with the villagers, and the book's words clung to her, accusing, promising. She burst outside, the cobblestones cold under her boots, the fog glowing brighter, the village alive with its curse. The torn page was dust in her hand, but its words lingered, tying her to the village's cosmic fate. Ellie ran, the streets twisting, the houses leaning in, their windows watching. The fog chased, its shapes forming her dad's wave, her mom's tears, her own face, glowing with starry eyes. The hum followed, relentless, and Ellie felt the presence fast cold, its hunger endless. Her knife was heavy, her arm tired, but she gripped it tighter. Her dad's jacket, her shield. The book had written her sins, but she wouldn't let it own her. Not yet. The village's paths looped, leading her back to the square, the well, the clock tower, but Ellie kept running, her heart stubborn, the library's scream promising she'd never escape. Chapter 9. The feast of the unseen. Ellie's boots slipped on the slick cobblestones as she fled the library, the book's accusing words still burning in her mind. The village's fog swirled around her, its sickly green glow pulsing like a heartbeat, wrapping her in a cold, damp shroud that clung to her skin. Her breath came in sharp, painful gasps, and her dad's torn jacket felt heavier, the leather her only anchor to the world beyond this cursed place. The knife in her hand trembled, its blade glinting faintly in the fog's light, but it seemed small against the village's hum, a low, relentless throb that shook the ground and burrowed into her bones. The library's scream still echoed, blending with the whispers of the well, the ticks of the clock tower, and the shadow's laughter, all part of the same hungry presence that knew her name. The fog pushed her, its glow curling like fingers, guiding her to the village square. Lanterns hung from twisted poles, their light flickering with the same starry glow as the villagers' eyes. Tables stood in rows, piled with food, bread, fruit, meat that smelled sweet but wrong, like flowers left too long in water. Villagers stood around, their faces half hidden in the fog, their eyes glowing bright, too bright, their smiles stretching too wide. Ellie's heart pounded, her legs shaking, but the fog pressed her forward, its hum vibrating in her chest, urging her to join them. A woman with glowing scars, like the innkeeper's, stepped from the mist, her eyes unblinking, her smile sharp. "Eat," she said, pressing a plate into Ellie's hands, her touch cold as ice. The plate was heavy, the food shimmering, its edges blurred like it wasn't real. Ellie's stomach twisted, hunger mixing with dread. She hadn't eaten since entering the village, and the smell pulled at her, tempting despite the wrongness. The villagers watched, their glow brightening, their forms flickering as if they weren't fully there. The hum grew louder, shaking the stones, and Ellie felt the presence again, vast, cold, its eyes countless, watching from the fog. She sat, her hands shaking, the plate cold against her palms. The villagers' eyes never left her, their smiles growing wider, their faces shifting, her dad's, her mum's, her own, all glowing with starry light. "Eat," they whispered, their voices blending into the hum, pulling at her thoughts. Ellie's throat tightened, tears stinging her eyes. She thought of her mum, alone at home, and her dad, gone forever, and gripped the knife in her pocket, its blade a small comfort. The food looked perfect, but its smell was off, like decay, hidden under sweetness. She took a bite, the bread soft at first, then turning to ash in her mouth, choking her. Ellie gagged, spitting it out, her throat burning. The villagers laughed, a sound like breaking glass, and the hum roared, shaking the ground. The food on the plate withered, fruit rotting, meat crumbling to dust. "You're one of us," the villagers said, their voices a chorus, their forms flickering faster now, their faces blurred, showing glimpses of something else, eyes without whites, mouths stretching too far, bodies dissolving into fragments of light. Ellie's heart stopped. They weren't human. They were pieces of something bigger, something that lived in the fog, hungry for her soul. The fog thickened, its glow burning her skin, and the villagers' eyes flared, their laughter turning to a low, hungry moan. Ellie knocked the plate away, the ash scattering, and stood, her legs shaking. "No," she said, her voice raw, but the villagers closed in, their forms merging with the fog, their hands reaching, cold and heavy. The hum was deafening, vibrating through her chest, and she felt the presence clearer, now its eyes everywhere, its hunger endless. The feast was a trap, meant to bind her soul to the thing beyond the stars. She ran, the square dissolving into fog, the villagers' voices chasing her. "You can't leave," they hissed, their forms blending into the mist, their eyes glowing brighter. Ellie's knife was in her hand, her arms swinging wildly, but the blade passed through them, useless. The fog swarmed, its shapes circling, and the hum pulsed in her skull, promising peace if she'd give in. Her dad's jacket caught on a table, tearing further, and she yanked it free, the sound grounding her. She thought of her mom's voice, sharp with worry. "Don't go too far." Ellie kept moving, her heart stubborn despite the fear. The streets twisted, the fog looping the paths to keep her trapped. The villagers' glow followed, their forms flickering in and out, their laughter blending with the hum. Ellie's breath burned, her lungs aching, but she ran, the knife her only defense. The fog showed her dad's face, his eyes starry, his mouth moving. "Stay, Ellie," it said, but it wasn't him. It was the village, the feast, the thing. In the fog, she swung her knife, the blade cutting through the mist, and the shapes hissed, retreating, but they didn't vanish. The square reappeared, the tables still there, the food rotting faster now, its smell choking her. The villagers' eyes glowed brighter, their forms dissolving into light, merging with the fog. Ellie felt the ash in her lungs, heavy, marking her. The hum roared, shaking the ground, and the presence pressed closer, its eyes countless, its hunger pulling at her soul. She stumbled, her boots slipping, and the fog closed in, its shapes forming her mom's face, her dad's, her own, all begging her to stay. Ellie's hand brushed her dad's jacket, the torn leather her shield. She gripped the knife tighter, her knuckles white, and ran again, the fog chasing, its glow pulsing like a heartbeat. The villagers' laughter followed, their voices weaving her fears, her guilt over the crash, her fights with her mom, her loneliness. The feast had marked her, its ash sinking into her, but she wouldn't let it win. The streets looped, leading her back to the square, the well, the clock tower, but Ellie kept running, her heart pounding. The knife, her anchor dot, the forest's edge, flickered in the distance, trees faint through the fog, but the path vanished before she could reach it. The hum grew louder, the villagers' eyes brighter, and Ellie felt the presence, vast, cold, its hunger endless. She swung her knife, the blade glinting, and the fog hissed, parting for a moment. Her dad's jacket was heavy, torn but hers, and she thought of her mom, waiting, and her dad, gone but still with her. The feast's ash burned in her chest, but Ellie ran, stubborn, refusing to give in, even as the village promised to keep her forever. Chapter 10. The path that vanishes. Ellie's boots pounded the slick cobblestones, her breath a ragged burn in her chest, as she fled the feast's ashen taste and the villagers' starry, hungry eyes. The village's fog swirled thick, its sickly, green glow pulsing like a living thing, wrapping her in a cold, damp grip that clawed at her skin. Her dad's torn jacket hung heavy, the leather her only anchor to the world beyond this cursed place, its weight both comfort and burden. The knife in her hand trembled, its blade glinting faintly in the fog's light, but it felt small against the village's hum, a low, relentless throb that shook the ground, her bones, and her thoughts. The feast's ash still burned in her lungs, the library's words accusing her, the shadow's laughter, and the clock's backward ticks blending into a chorus of dread. The village was one creature, alive and hungry, and it wanted her soul. The streets twisted, their paths bending in ways that defied sense, looping back on themselves like a trap. Ellie ran, her legs shaking, her heart slamming against her ribs. The fog pushed her, its glow curling around her ankles like fingers, whispering promises, her dad's last words, her mom's hidden fears if she'd only stay. She ignored it, her eyes stinging with tears, her knife raised like a shield. The hum grew louder, vibrating through the cobblestones, and the houses leaned in, their windows dark but watching, their walls pulsing with the village's heartbeat. Her flashlight was dead, useless in her pocket, and the fog's glow was her only light, sickly and wrong. She saw the forest's edge once, trees faint through the mist, a glimpse of freedom beyond the village. Her heart leaped, and she pushed harder, her boots slipping on the stones. But the path vanished, dissolving into fog, and the square reappeared, the well, the clock tower, the feast's rotting tables, looping her back to the village's heart. Ellie's breath caught, her throat tight. The village was playing with her, its paths alive, shifting to keep her trapped. She clutched her dad's jacket, the torn leather grounding her, and thought of her mom's voice, sharp with worry. "Don't go too far, Ellie." But she had, and now the village wouldn't let her go. The fog thickened, its shapes forming her. Dad's face, his eyes glowing starry and wrong. Her mom's pleading, her own twisted with fear. "Stay," they whispered. Their voices, the villages, the hums, the thing beyond the stars. Ellie's knife slashed at the air, the blade passing through the shapes, and they hissed, scattering but reforming, their laughter like breaking glass. She ran again, her legs burning, her lungs aching with the feast's ash. The cobblestones seemed to move, tripping her, and she fell, her hands scraping the stones. The fog swarmed, its glow burning her skin, and the hum roared, shaking the ground. Ellie scrambled to her feet, her knife still in her hand. She marked the stones with its blade, scratching lines to track her path, but the marks faded, swallowed by the village's will. The fog laughed, a cold sound that sank into her bones, and the shapes grew bolder, circling tighter. They showed her the crash her dad's car, twisted metal, her screams echoing, and Ellie's chest ached, tears burning her eyes. The village was using her pain, her guilt, to keep her here. She swung her knife, the blade glinting, and the shapes retreated, but the hum didn't stop. It was everywhere, pulling at her thoughts, promising answers, peace. If she'd give in, a shadow loomed ahead. Not the dancing ones, but something bigger, its edges endless, its presence crushing. The fog parted, showing a glimpse of stars, the sky, but something alive, countless eyes watching, their hunger endless. Ellie froze, her heart stopping, her knife trembling. The shadow moved, slow and deliberate, its form shifting her dad, her mum, herself, all glowing with starry eyes, all part of the village. "You belong here," it whispered, its voice the hum, the fog, the thing beyond. Ellie's legs buckled, her body heavy, but she thought of her mum, waiting at home, and her dad, gone but still with her. She ran, the fog chasing, its shapes circling, their eyes unblinking. The streets looped again, leading her back to the square, the well's whispers blending with the clock's ticks, the feast's ash, the library's words. Ellie's knife was heavy, her arm tired, but she gripped it tighter, slashing at the fog. The shapes hissed, retreating, but the hum grew louder, shaking the ground. She saw the forest again, its trees closer now, and her heart leaped, but the path vanished, the fog swallowing it. The village was endless, its paths a maze, its will unbreakable. Ellie's breath burned, her lungs heavy with ash, her body aching. The fog showed her dad's wave, her mum's tears, her own face begging her to stay. She swung her knife, the blade cutting through the mist, and the shapes scattered, their laughter fading. The hum roared, but Ellie thought of her mum's voice, her dad's smile, and kept running, her heart stubborn. The forest flickered, its trees faint, and she marked the stones again, her knife's scratches fading but not gone. The fog pressed, closer, its glow pulsing, and the shadow loomed, its eyes countless, its hunger pulling at her soul. She clutched her dad's jacket, the torn leather her shield, and ran, the knife her anchor. The village's paths twisted, the hum deafening, but Ellie wouldn't stop. The forest was there, somewhere, and she'd find it, even if the village fought to keep her. The shadow's eyes glowed brighter, its voice whispering her name, but Ellie's heart was hers, and she'd fight to keep it, no matter how many times the path vanished.